Today's video is intended for novelty purposes only. It is parody, satire. It is not necessarily reflective of the views of those who made it while giggling to themselves. It is, in essence, perfectly okay. So that's a little disclaimer there. Also just hello to the nerdses who are here very temporarily, just to mass report the video and get it age-gated. That's about all. Let's crack on. Well, it just had to happen, didn't it? After years of making real video games for me, a real gamer to play, it seems BioWare has finally drunk the social justice Kool-Aid and threw away their integrity to appeal to so-called modern audiences. I've been a lifelong fan of the Dragon Age series ever since Dragon Age Inquisition. I've always loved the adventures of Geralt and his pals, but it looks like I'm gonna have to say goodbye to the world of Rivellon for good. But that's BioWare for you, shunning the long-term fans who put them where they are. Am I right, fellow BioWare fans? Dragon Age the Veilguard is the latest in a long line of video games to force its politics onto me by including some characters who don't look and act exactly like I do. And that's why I'm urging all of you to completely ignore Dragon Age Veilguard by talking about it incessantly on social media for weeks on end, or at least until the next big game comes out, that I can use as an excuse to get attention and make everything about me. Whichever one comes first, really. You know me, I'm easy. I can drop these super important causes just as easy as I can pick them up. You can imagine my horror as there I was talking all day on Twitter about all the games I'm refusing to play like a real gamer when I saw the news. Dragon Age, the Veilguard, has cis heterosexual men in it. Even worse, you can actually create your own cis man, complete with he, him fucking pronouns, and play as it. Yes, that's right, folks. Dragon Age has gone bloke. Yet another game poisoned by Guyversity and Himclusion. Another bloke game reminding me how unwelcome I am by making it clear that everybody is welcome, just like how the Nazis used to develop games. I am sick to ruddy death of cishets ruining everything by being, you know, around. Everywhere you look, cishets are crawling all over Dragon Age, shoving their straightness down my throat.
I married someone with good advice.
You see? Just look at how blatantly shoehorned that is. There was no need, no reason for a man and a woman to be married so obviously and go on about it on and on and on. They couldn't virtue signal it hard enough. Let's look at it again.
I married someone with good advice.
Disgusting. And again, I'm not quite angry enough yet.
I married someone with good advice.
Oh yeah, that did it. That got me mad enough. By the way, why are you forcing me to look at this? Let's look one more time.
I married someone...
How many more games is it going to take? How many more games are going to force me to choose to expose myself to this content over and over again? How many more times are they going to railroad me with a variety of diverse options to choose from? Where's the option for nobody in the world to get an option, huh? Yeah, so much for freedom of choice. By allowing players to create their own cishet men, Dragon Age is making people think it's okay to be one, which is literally indoctrinating everybody who has ever heard of Dragon Age. I'm tired of games forcing things onto me by letting people who I don't know play games in ways I don't have to, in places I can't see them. They might as well just kick down my front door and inject pure testosterone into my eyes and neck region. Just thinking about someone playing this game as a male has ruined my entire week. I was gonna have fun this week getting angry at the idea that some people might play the game on a lower difficulty than me, but who can think about anything else when there are genders who aren't my genders? Everywhere you look, the straightoids are being entirely catered to, sometimes to the point of completely overshadowing normal queer people, for whom this game is supposed to be exclusively for. Look at how many straight person haircuts you can select in the character creator. Meanwhile, there's only one side shave hairstyle. Wow, way to make your real fans feel forgotten, BioWare. I cannot express enough how fucking disgusting it is that men are seen or heard in modern media, which is a totally okay and acceptable attitude to express. games. After all, it's just my opinion. That's all this is, my harmless opinion that cis men have no right to be seen, should be stripped of any language to define themselves, should never see examples of themselves portrayed, and their inclusion in anything should be threatened into total withdrawal. So yeah, when I say that all straight cis men should be wiped out of public existence, you can't get mad at me. You can't be mad at an opinion. And if you disagree, I'm gonna be so fucking angry at you. Look, I need to make it clear that I'm not mansphobic. I just don't want to see the slightest trace of a cis man in a single video game, and will organise harassment campaigns to threaten and slander game developers into eradicating cis males entirely from the media I consume and the media I don't consume. Now what about that makes me sound like a bigot? How exactly am I being intolerant just because I can't tolerate a single on-screen second of someone who doesn't remind me of myself? That's not intolerance. If anything, it's narcissism. Wait, no, it's not that either. Shut up! Aside from how much of a problem I keep having with it, I have no problem with cishet men being included in video games. I just don't like... bad writing. Yeah, Craig, we're sticking with that one currently, right? Yes. It's bad writing to keep having male characters in video games. Because of some reasons. I mean, I was perfectly okay with Hicks being in Aliens, wasn't I? And that proves me right. It doesn't speak to how arbitrarily we cherry-pick these things, and it certainly has nothing to do with growing up watching Aliens and having it grandmothered into my brain before a cottage industry of YouTubers came along to tell me that the media I used to like is actually bad and I should buy some supplements about it.
Get IcoPro. You've gotta want it.
Besides, Aliens was from a time before everything got too political. There's not even anything gender-based in it. But all these men in all these video games, it doesn't even make sense, you know? It makes no sense whatsoever that a cishet male has a prominent role in a fantasy story because it makes no sense. When it comes to stories about elves and dragons and magic spells, I want them to be believable. But too many video games have been cramming men into their fantastical stories without first explaining how it isn't weird. Which it is. It's weird that a male man who is a male can fight a witch with a sword as well as any non-binary person. That's what the Bloke Games list on Steam says without the need for any further qualification anyway. Veilguard even uses the word man sometimes, which is a word those degenerates use to describe themselves in modern society. So that's anachronistic, isn't it? At the very least, they could invent a fantasy term so it sounds more natural to the setting and more unnatural to us. Which it is. I mean, men, innit? It's just kind of... ugh. And it makes the dialogue sound bad. There is nothing more sanitizing in dialogue than using the correct terminology to describe people, rather than, you know, whitewashing it with something unrelatable, so that it's more palatable for me. This is worse than when white people started showing up in the Elder Scrolls. At no point did Bethesda justify how a white person could exist in the world of Tamriel. They just awkwardly shoveled them in right next to the people of colour as if they had a right to be there, and didn't need to first put forth a coherent and exhaustive argument as to why they should be existing. And some people said we were doing a racism just because we said they don't belong around here. Talk about intolerant. Well, it's a good thing that I think the game is selling poorly, proving once again that if you go bloke, you go broke. Since the validity of my identity is defined entirely by how much money Electronic Arts makes, it's a very good thing that the internet's told me it's crashing and burning right now. Almost as good as when Concord failed.
You're still mad at me?
Literally entirely because I didn't masturbate to any of the characters in it. Much. Everybody knows the #1 reason games flop is when they can't stop my penis doing the same thing. And that's why studios shut down nowadays, because Concord made my cock bored, and not because of a dozen other problems with a game industry in complete freefall that get completely overlooked because I keep hijacking every discussion about video games to make them all about me and my problems. God, it's great that I keep doing that. I was worried for a while that video games wouldn't be all about me, because they did start trying to appeal to others as well as me. And I couldn't have that, so thank fuck we found a different way to force every new game to be all about us. Because fuck forced Guyversity. Anyway, Dragon Age Veilguard is definitely Dragon Age Veilguard. That's a good one. It can be scientifically proven as well. If you draw a picture of the moon, and then right in the middle of that drawing, the words Dragon Age Veilguard didn't sell very well, you'll have a picture of the moon with Dragon Age Veilguard didn't sell very well written on it. What more proof do you need? Well, actually, shut up, don't answer that, because we've got more proof. We've got scientific objective fact. Because you see, if you go over to the Metacritic user reviews for the game... Actually, no, I can't even keep up the sarcasm for that one, it's too funny. That's less credible than the drawing of the fucking moon. In fact, yeah, let's wrap it up for the piss-taking, because honestly, what I've said up to this point isn't even satire. I'm not even sure I can claim that it's been heightened for comic effect, because there's no fucking way I can scream with performative outrage to a degree as extreme as them. In fact, Zilla, do we have that fucking pronoun? What am I saying? Of course we've got that clip.
Did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!
Thank you, darling.
Sure thing, Sugar Tush.
If not for replacing cishet men with queer and particularly non-binary people today, the shit I've said about Dragon Age Veilguard is basically a one-to-one accurate representation of what I've seen the usual mob of outraged tourist Nazis spouting about online all fucking week. It's become impossible to satirise, really. All I can do is some role reversal to demonstrate the offensiveness of what the outraged tourists are saying about queer people for the benefit of those who can't empathise with us, which it turns out is mostly them. Otherwise, yeah, we are in total Poe territory. We can't get extreme enough to mock the anti-DEI crowd, who really do have a list of woke games so utterly mad in its demands for purity that almost every single video game has been deemed too woke to play. I mean, seriously, they don't play anything if they follow this list. Unless it's Black Myth or Stellar Blade, nothing that comes out anymore is pure enough for them to enjoy. They want video games to be as pure as they wish their race was. And yes, one of the criteria for wokeness really is features a prominent female character in a fantasy setting. What the fuck? Oh, it's nowhere near my favourite entry in the woke games list either. That honour goes to Dustborn with the damning critique of "There's a guy knitting in the trailer below." Well, now political correctness has just gone too far, hasn't it? What the fuck has happened to the community? Jesus fucking Christ. But as I've said in past videos, taking the abject piss out of these literal Puritans is all I ever plan to do in response now, because it's all they deserve. All week I've watched a level of disgust expressed for a game that I'm not sure I've ever seen before, and mostly because it has a non-binary character in a featured role who uses our language to describe their identity. And what I've seen and heard from the disgusted is a very clear message. That me and people like me are so hated that the slightest public trace of us is to be stamped out, nothing short of cultural eradication. The same message they keep sending, whether it's something significant like this or something tiny like a pride flag that's easily missed in a game's background. I could argue against their weak deflections from the truth that their message is one of eradication. I could point out their hypocrisies and lies, as I have done in years past. But why should I when they're arguing for cultural eradication? That is straight up fascist shit, and it deserves nothing more than to have the piss ripped right out of it. When I'm being told I'm not allowed to see one person like me in one video game, I won't give them the dignity they're all too happy to deny me. You know, I'm not even that much of a fan of Veilguard. It's alright, not brilliant, but I think it did do a cool thing with its representation, and it deserves to be there with as much justification as the representation a cishet man gets in any video game. That is to say, none. It just gets to be there. Oh, and yes, let's mention this for the inevitable accusations of bias and corruption that'll come if I don't. Yes, my friend and colleague worked on Dragon Age the Veilguard. She consulted on it, which, by the way, is not the same as writing it, and let's make that point because, good lord, am I sick of all the chudlings who are blaming her for stuff no consultant has ever had the power to dictate in a game's development? Not that pointing it out will matter, because the people attacking her don't really care. All that matters to them is they've been able to identify a trans person associated with the game, so they will justify their excited harassment of her any which way they can. 'Cause they're dickheads. Anyway, point is, I am immensely fucking proud of Laura Kate Dale. Her efforts in the field of accessibility and representation have been trailblazing for years, and have certainly helped me out many times before, and she's fucking awesome, and she's accomplished more than the dozen dribbling turnips currently misgendering me in the comments of this video ever will. And that's really the point I'm making today. Now, I've been dealing with these outraged tourists for a long time, and I know how they think. I don't necessarily understand how they think because, well, I feel like that would require diminishing one's own humanity in order to understand them fully, but I do know how they think, and I know that a lot of what I said has legitimately offended them. For people who have a go at others for being easily offended, you know, I'm not the first one to point out, in fact, it's not the first time I've pointed out that they are some of the most easily triggered, easily offended, most easy to upset people in the fucking world. And I know that a lot of what I said will have offended, frustrated, upset a lot of them. And one hopes that maybe that would cause a little self-reflection. Maybe they could engage a little empathy and think to themselves, wow, if I'm upset hearing this, maybe me going online and saying it to people all of the time, my every waking moment, might not be such... What am I saying? No, they're just gonna call me a man again. Which is a shame because I hate them. Only joking, I love blokes. A lot. Thank God for me. Don't mind me just thinking about
I married someone with good advice.